Crystal and Danielle Parker have built a life together that seems to be a happy one. The truth is, though, Crystal has grown tired of supporting her less than ambitious wife and determines that it's time to move on. Except Danielle won't be easily dismissed. Hello and welcome to The Dark Side of Love. I'm your host, Bianca Sloan, author of suspense novels about the dark side of love. And this week I'm putting a spotlight on the case I'm calling Love Gone Wrong. Crystal Parker was born in Atlanta but raised in Florida with her twin brother Aaron and their sister Kelly. Crystal was a bit of a tomboy, as she loved to climb trees and play sports, including basketball. Crystal was so good at playing ball, she scored a basketball scholarship to attend college. However, plans for higher education are derailed when she is diagnosed with lupus. Crystal devotes the next several years to getting well, undergoing chemotherapy and enduring endless procedures and agonizing hospital stays. Eventually, Crystal's health improves and she finally makes it to college and graduates. She goes on to attend the police academy, having set her sights on a career in law enforcement. After Crystal graduates from the academy in 2006, she takes a job as a beat cop with the East Point Police Department in Fulton County, Georgia, which is just outside of Atlanta. Crystal is good at her job, racking up an impressive spate of accolades, including being named Officer of the Year 3 years in a row. To make extra money, Crystal spends her days off from the force working security for a local Atlanta nightclub, which is where she meets 23-year-old Danielle Dixon. Atlanta native Danielle Alexis Dixon was born in 1982 and was raised by her single mother. Danielle was known to lack confidence, in part because of her struggles with her weight, which naturally led to self-esteem issues. However, when the shy high schooler decides to come out of the closet, it seems to free Danielle and open her up to new experiences as she embraces her new lifestyle. She loses weight, and eventually that newfound confidence leads straight to ditching school and hanging out with a bad crowd, which is a lot more exciting than algebra and American history. It's not long before Danielle decides to drop out of high school altogether. At this juncture of her life, 23-year-old Danielle is a little bit aimless. She has no high school diploma and she's drifting in and out of relationships. She's yearning to find true love and get a little bit of stability in her life. And when she meets Crystal Parker, it seems like her dreams are about to come true. The minute Crystal spotted Danielle across the room at the club, she's like, well, I got to have me some of that, and walked over to Danielle and told her so, gushing that she thought she was gorgeous and that she wanted to be with her. Crystal's words do the trick because the two go home together later that night. And just a few days after that, Danielle moves in with Crystal, who is absolutely gaga about her new girlfriend. As Crystal's sister Kelly Calderon told Snap, quote, my sister pretty much doted on her. Whatever she wanted, she got. Danielle does her part by making sure that Crystal is taken care of by playing the role of the traditional wife, doing things like making Crystal's lunch, keeping the house, doing all the things that a traditional homemaker would do. Crystal turns out to be quite the positive influence on Danielle, helping her to obtain her GED and offering both financial and emotional support for Danielle's pursuit of a nursing career. As Colve Salter, a friend of Crystal, told Snap, quote, Crystal supported Danielle 100% in whatever she wanted to do in life. The couple stays booed up in domestic bliss for a year before they decide to make it permanent at Atlanta's annual Pride Festival, taking part in the official commitment ceremony that happens during the event. To further show her commitment to Crystal, Danielle takes the step of legally changing her last name from Dixon to Crystal's last name, Parker. Crystal and Danielle seal the deal even further by buying a house together in East Point, which is where Crystal's police beat is. So she really is a part of the community. So Danielle and Crystal, they live in a pretty nice neighborhood in East Point, though the city itself is considered to be emerging, which is code for there's a lot of room for improvement. So, like I said, even though we think crime never happens in a nice neighborhood, like the one where Crystal and Danielle live, the truth is crime can happen anywhere, which is why police officer Crystal teaches Danielle how to fire a gun. Just in case anything ever happens, she has the peace of mind that Danielle knows how to protect herself. July 7th, 2013. Crystal and Danielle have been together for 6 years. The couple are homebodies, typically spending Sunday nights at home, having dinner and watching movies with an elderly neighbor. On this particular Sunday, the neighbor stopped by, as usual, but something is wrong. The front door is unlocked. When she opens it, she sees that the back door is wide open, and it's quiet. She makes her way through the house, asking if anyone was home, and is met with silence. She continues her search, eventually heading upstairs, and there's a horrible odor. And as she gets to the master bedroom, she learns why. It's Crystal, laying in bed, the back of her head bloody. The neighbor calls 911, but it's too late. Crystal was dead. Crystal Parker was 34 years old. It's evident that Crystal has been dead for several days, as decomposition has already set in. Police immediately start to consider a number of theories. Was this someone who maybe Crystal had arrested and they were taking revenge? Was it a random act of violence in struggling East Point? A home invasion? Well, these possibilities get discarded pretty quickly. There are no signs of forced entry, no big ticket items are missing like electronics. In fact, there's a big computer and laptop on the nightstand next to the bed, perfectly intact. And in fact, the only things that are immediately determined to be missing are Crystal's cell phone and her service revolver. Also missing, her wife Danielle. Not long after Crystal's body is discovered, Danielle surfaces. She calls the friend and neighbor who found Crystal, who's still at the crime scene, and asks what's going on because another friend had alerted her that police were at the house. When she is told that Crystal has been killed, Danielle loses it and she's sobbing and saying that Crystal is, quote, the love of her life. Well, about that. Apparently, Crystal and Danielle have actually been broken up for the past 3 months. And when Danielle goes to the police station to talk to authorities, she reveals that she and Crystal had mutually agreed to separate so that she, meaning Danielle, could concentrate on nursing school. She's like, yeah, we were on a break, we were figuring things out, but that they were still friends, which is code for banging the gong once in a while. But she paints this picture that overall everything between them was cool. However, Fulton County Police Detective Rashid Hamilton, who was investigating the murder, told Snap that Danielle did not strike him as someone who was devastated by the brutal murder of the so-called love of her life. He says, in fact, that Danielle's demeanor struck him as, quote, odd. There were no tears, very little emotion. As part of the investigation, cops reconstruct Crystal's last days and learn that she had missed her shift at the police station on July 4th. This is completely out of character for her, and when she didn't show up for work, her supervisor had called her, but nobody answered. However, the captain, that's Crystal's supervisor, she got an immediate text back from Crystal's phone that said, quote, my father is in the hospital. I can't talk right now. It's strange that Crystal wouldn't have called to say that her father was in the hospital, as she was known to be very conscientious. She is not someone who would send a terse text to get out of work. She would call, talk directly to her supervisor, tell her exactly what was going on. And so the next day, July 5th, Crystal still doesn't call. So her supervisor texts and asks how her father is doing. And the response she gets, quote, I'm fine, thank you. Now, does this make any sense to you? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. It is a very strange response. Okay, so the medical examiner finds that Crystal was shot with a .38 caliber bullet, which, as it turns out, is the exact caliber of her service weapon, which, remember, is missing. Next up, investigators talk to Crystal's family, and they shed some new light on the relationship between Crystal and Danielle, and the picture is not pretty. Rashid Hamilton, who is investigating the murder, he tells Snap that Crystal's father, who it turns out was never in the hospital, by the way, he characterized Danielle as, quote, a moocher, with Crystal's brother Aaron sharing with Snap that Crystal was pretty much bankrolling everything in the relationship, from the house payments to the groceries. And so while Crystal is out busting her hump as a police officer on the streets of East Point, Danielle is in no hurry to get that nursing degree, because as Crystal's sister Kelly tells Snap, Danielle had become quite accustomed to the lifestyle that Crystal was providing. Instead of studying or going to class, Danielle passed her days by spending hours playing on the computer and messing around on her iPad. Crystal's friend Amber Moore mused to Snapped that Danielle really didn't have a passion for nursing, that Crystal was the one who was urging her to go into that career, saying, quote, Danielle was mostly doing this, meaning going to nursing school, so she wouldn't have to work. Another Fulton County detective, T. Howard, told Snapped about Danielle, quote, she didn't work and she wasn't very helpful in the relationship at all. Apparently, Crystal had gotten tired of carrying Danielle on her back and had started to pull away from this one-sided relationship. Her sister Kelly told Snapped, quote, my sister got tired of being the breadwinner, of being the one that gives and gives and gives, and got nothing in return. Crystal's friend Amber Moore said it more bluntly about the dynamic between the couple, and specifically about Danielle, quote, she wanted all of your attention. That was a very big thing for her. You are mine, always going to be mine, and you need to cater to my needs. Now, you would think that with Danielle basically demanding that Crystal give all of her time and attention, and let's not forget money, that Danielle would be 100% devoted to her wife. Well, no, she wasn't. In fact, Danielle's a serial cheater. And Crystal, who's naturally a nurturer and who was so in love with Danielle, she would always take her back. But even Crystal had her limits. Before her murder, she came home from work at 2:30 in the morning one morning to find that Danielle had another woman in their house. Well, I should say Crystal's house, since Danielle is basically a guest there. And this was just a bridge too far for Crystal. And she kicks Danielle out. Except Danielle is a manipulator, and manipulators don't give up easily. And so she focuses on wooing Crystal back. And it works. Not only does Crystal start giving Danielle money again, which is a constant throughout their relationship, they start banging the gong again. Eventually, though, Crystal decides to cut the cord and she begins to date someone else who, according to her family, she was really happy with. Danielle, of course, is not happy about it. Tom Jones, a reporter for WSB in Atlanta, summed it up way better than I could, telling Snapped, quote, new girlfriend comes in, old girlfriend is pushed out. There's gonna be fireworks. Hashtag facts. Danielle tells investigators that the last time she saw Crystal at the house was June 27th, which is a week before the murder. So investigators are like, well, we got to check this out. Can't take her word for it. So they start by examining Danielle's phone records. And it's clear that she is a liar, liar, pants on fire, because according to those cell phone records, she spent roughly 25 hours at Crystal's house, from the morning of July 3rd to the afternoon of the 4th. And something else that makes you go, Crystal and Danielle's phones were pinging off the same towers at the same time, which means Danielle was the person texting with Crystal's supervisor during the time when Crystal was not showing up for work, and these bogus "my dad is in the hospital" text messages are coming in. This is all that cops need. They determine that Danielle is at her mother's house, and they get a warrant and head to the house. A search of the property yields Crystal's wallet and her cell phone. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported that Danielle also had two $600 bank transfers from the personal accounts that she shared with Crystal. The transfers having taken place about an hour after the time police believe Crystal was murdered. They further find that Danielle had stolen an Xbox and some of Crystal's mail. And they find a .38 caliber bullet, which again, the same caliber of bullet that was used in Crystal's murder. Cops bring Danielle back into the station, and she is bored by this whole thing, which is like not the tone you want to take when you're being interrogated by cops about your wife's murder, but I digress. Even more disturbing is, in an attempt to shake something out of Danielle, investigators put the crime scene photos from Crystal's murder in front of her. And for all the reactions she had, you would think that she was being asked what kind of stamps she wants. Total blank. Rashid Hamilton, the detective, he says in Snapped, quote, her demeanor was classic. Detachment. No remorse. Matter of fact. Police have enough to arrest Danielle for Crystal's murder, and it sent shockwaves across Crystal's friends and family, with the motive being pretty clear. As Tom Jones told Snapped, quote, Crystal was a gravy train, And when that gravy train stopped, Danielle couldn't take it. The murder weapon, which was Crystal's service weapon, was never found. Now, all of the evidence that police have, not to mention a very solid motive, is damning enough. But Danielle, remember, she spends all day on the internet, and when cops examine the search history on her computer, they find that she's been looking for things like, quote, how to pass a lie detector test and how to interview with a police detective. But even more chilling than that, in the days before Crystal's body was found, Danielle was actually searching for Crystal's obituary. So essentially, she was just waiting for proof of something that she already knew. Cops believe that on the morning of July 4th, Danielle was in the house and overheard a phone call between Crystal and her new girlfriend who lived in Florida and went ballistic. She knows that the gravy train has left the station. Her options are less than zero, so Crystal has to go. As Detective Rashid Hamilton told Snapped, quote, "It was a classic case. If I can't have you, nobody else can." So this seems pretty cut and dried, right? Well, not quite. Because when investigators take another look at Danielle's cell phone records, they notice she was talking to someone around the time that Crystal was murdered. This obviously piques their interest because is this possibly an accomplice? Cops learn that the phone number belongs to a man named Quentin. And boy, does he have a lot to say. For one, he and Danielle have been dating since the beginning of June. Quentin claims that Danielle wanted to go slow, saying the most he ever got from her was a hug, which should have been a red flag. But like all liars, Danielle has an explanation. He says that Danielle told him that she wasn't ready to jump into anything because she had just broken up with her husband. That's right. Danielle told this guy that she had a husband, not a wife. He's shocked, understandably, to learn that Danielle had a wife, and he is emphatic, telling cops, quote, "That girl said she was married to a dude." Oh, but wait. Danielle pulls the "my husband is abusing me" card with Quentin, telling him that her husband was stalking her and that she needed him, Quentin, to take care of this for her. Again, Danielle is a manipulator, and clearly she was sure that she could trick this guy into doing her dirty work for her. Quentin is not the one, though, because he's like, "My name is Les, and I ain't in this mess." So it seems as though Danielle is on her own if she wants to eliminate Crystal. I mean, this honestly sounds like something she saw in a bad Lifetime movie. And listen, I love a Lifetime movie, but let's be real. This just sounds ridiculous. So anyway, on the morning of July 4th, Danielle told Quentin that she was going to her husband's house to pick up her things, and he told her to be careful. She then starts to psychotext him that she needs his help. I'm guessing this was after she'd shot and killed Crystal. But again, Les, not in this mess. Quentin doesn't take the bait. He even says to cops, quote, "I ain't got nothing to do with this shiz. I didn't know this biatch was crazy." Preach it, Quentin. Danielle was arrested on July 9th, and as the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported, she was charged with malice murder, aggravated assault, felony murder, and possession of a gun during the commission of a felony. The evidence against Danielle is pretty strong, and prosecutors determined that they are going to take the death penalty off the table and go for life instead. So pretty clear which way this is going to go, right? No. Because Danielle apparently can't read the tea leaves, it seems, because she refuses any and all plea deals and insists on going to trial. So jury selection for Danielle's trial is scheduled to start in November of 2014, but then out of the blue, her attorney contacts prosecutors and says that Danielle is going to plead guilty. So I guess she did eventually read the tea leaves, because honestly, there was no way she was getting out of this. Danielle is sentenced to 30 years to life and once again shows no remorse, just blank. Danielle Parker is serving her sentence at Pulaski State Prison in Hawkinsville, Georgia. She will be eligible for parole in 2044 when she is 62 years old. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of The Dark Side of Love. I'm your host, Bianca Sloan, and show your love for The Dark Side of Love by visiting thedarksideoflove.com for show notes and transcripts. While you're there, sign up for my newsletter to be notified about new episodes. You can also find a link to my Patreon page where you can access bonus material and other fun stuff. Learn more about my suspense novels about the dark side of love by visiting biancasloan.com. Thanks for hanging out with me, and join me next time for another tale of love gone wrong. I'll see you on the dark side.